there, it's Linda from Lányos Handmade, and today we are going to sew up the Mocha Wallet. I've got a few here for you, and the Mocha Wallet is a raw edge material wallet, and it's got no fray fabric inside for the linings and the card slot pockets. You can use something like cotton if you like, but there's instructions in the pattern for maybe sewing them a bit more, you know, zigzagging the edges, doing hems. But you know, there are instructions for doing it that way too, with some kind of quilting cotton. Anyway, as you can see, most of it's raw edge. 2 zipper pouches that are really big. I don't have a passport here with me, or my phone, but I managed to squeeze my phone and a passport in one pouch. There is also a pocket that's optional on the back. I don't think I did it on this one, so this one, the back's plain. That you can put a cell phone in, or keys or something, you know, something that you just want to grab at quick. What else have we got? Oh, we've got 12 card slots. And then we've got a flap to hold it all together. Now there's options for straps too. You can do a wrist strap, or you can do this hardware heavy strap, as I call it. This is webbing, and I've given instructions on how to do little patches on them too, if you are worried about your webbing fraying. But this is the hardware heavy strap, and then there's also instructions for a regular adjustable strap too. I don't know if you can see it if I'm out of the camera, but so this one just has an adjustable strap and a wrist strap on it. And the same features: card slots, zipper pockets, big ones. This one also has an applique on it. This applique came with a different pattern, but you know, there are coupons that you can collect all of them if you like. Now the next one I have is a reverse applique, and there's instructions for how to do that too. And there also are instructions, because you'll notice here on this one, it has a cork tab here, and there are instructions how to do a fabric tab too. Maybe you've got your eye on some quilting cotton that you really like. I picked this one because it had a little skull down here, and I thought it matched nicely. And also it tells you how to do your straps with webbing, vinyl or cork, or just fabric. So this is a pattern, again, that's loaded with options. So when you're using the pattern pieces, try and keep track, even before you start. Figure out what you want to make and what you want to make it with. And then you'll know when you're picking the pattern pieces and the instructions which one you actually want to use. Oh, this is the swirl. I don't know if you can see it very well. This is a swirl pattern that my machine cut out. There are SVGs for Brother and Cricket and Silhouette. And so you can cut out your appliques by hand, or you can cut them out with a cutting machine. And this is the swirl one. I don't have the heart cut out. I should cut it out and put a picture up on the website so that you can see what the heart looks like. These things I grabbed because I wanted to let you know too that if you really want to, let me untangle all this, you can make not only 12 card slots, but 24. If your machine is strong enough, you can cut out an extra, and this isn't in the pattern, so this is a special extra hack. You can cut out an extra set of card slots, the pieces, and you can make card slots in this. The instructions for that are in the pattern, how to put the card slots in here, right? And the lining. And then after you sew the 2 pieces together, all the way around. Of course, you know, you can see through now, but there'll be lining in there. And then before you sew everything together, this is a hack, it's not in the pattern, you can add in this layer between the two outside layers that you have, and sew it in there too. And that way you can have, that's 6, 6 is 12, and 6, 6 is 24. You can have 24 card slots. So that's a hack I'm just giving you here. It's not in the pattern, although in the pattern it does tell you how to do card slots. The other thing is, if you want card slots, but you don't want that many, you could do it with a solid back. Or you could do 2 solids and make a zipper pocket, a third zipper pocket out of it. That's a hack, and it's not in the pattern. And actually, I'm not going to show it to you now anyway, but maybe the next one I do, I'll do all the hacks. I'm just kind of worried about blowing out my machine. I might have to use one of my vintage machines for it, because it's going to be a lot of layers. But it tells you how to do these zipper pockets. So make a zipper pocket with 2 solid pieces, no card slots. Put the zipper in just like the instructions say, and then you'll have this extra zipper pouch floating around, and gee, what do I do with it? Well, then we'll slide that in here, and we'll sew it in when we sew everything. And then you could have 3 zipper pouches if you like. So maybe I will do another one someday with, let me know in the comments. Do you want to see one hacked with the 3rd pouch, a zipper pouch? Or do you want to see it hacked with card slots? Or what do you want to see? So let me know, because you can hack this to put a 3rd section in the middle and make it whatever you choose. For today, we're just going to stick to the simple one. And there are SVGs for all the appliques. With this one, you get a skull, you get a heart, and you get the swirl. And there are SVGs for those, and there are the reverse cuts for those too, if you wanted to do a reverse applique. This one is a little bit padded. I put in the reinforcing acrylic, and I put some padding on top to make it kind of soft and cushy, and I showed that to you in the video. This one, I don't think I put anything in. There is no acrylic plastic. There is, I'll show you how soft it is. There is no foam, and so it's very soft. So you can choose what you want to put in yours. This one has a little bit of plastic in it, just a layer of acrylic. I can feel it. But it's kind of thinner feeling, so it's your choice. Do you want to have it soft and cushy in your hand? This puts it up to about 1 inch thick. Or do you want to have it really, really skinny? Like this one I can squish down to about 1/2 inch. So those are more choices that you have to make. So I guess we should just start sewing. So let's start off with our D-ring tabs, and I'm going to do something different. I'm going to use these rings. So basically what we have to do, whether you're using a D-ring tab or a triangle ring, is just stitch it here so that it doesn't slip off while you're working with it. Now this cork is a little bit flimsy, so I'm going to get a small piece of, interfacing, something Peltex, something like that, and stick it on here before I fold it over. Now the stuff you use doesn't have to be a perfect shape, just as long as it's hidden in here. And, if your cork is really strong, you won't even need to use this, but this one, feels a little flimsy for me. So I'm just going to sew this in here, and then it'll stay, and it'll be really nice. Now here too, we can use this material here and sew that in too. So it depends on your machine. Some of these are really thick and it might add too much, and some of them are quite thin and yet strong. You can see the differences there. So I will sew those in, and that'll take care of the D-ring tabs, and then we can move on to the next step. And with these, remember, you only need 1 D-ring tab if you're only doing the wrist strap. I have two because I want a shoulder strap too. Now, next is our magnetic snap closure here. I put my markings on, poked my holes through. I can stick this through and put that through. This might be a bit too big, so I have to trim it down. Yeah, I should round off the corner there so I don't hit it when I'm sewing. Because you gotta leave space to sew. Some people make these things really tiny. Like just the size of the snap, but I don't mind having them a little bigger just as long as they're out of my seam allowance. So how much should I take off here? That's good enough. Next we put this on. All thumbs today. And then I'm going to press this down. I'm always grabbing this to press these down. Hope I didn't shake the table too much. Then I'm going to put on some tape. I'm running out of tape, so I'm grabbing anything I can get my hands on. I think I might bang this with a hammer too, because I'm not usually strong enough to do it. And then I'll put this tape on. And then we can put these two layers together and sew them. And now I've sewed my two pieces together. And this is ready to go when I need it. Okay, we've got our back piece here. This is our back outer layer, and I'm going to put a pocket on it too, but that comes later on. Right now we have to pay attention to putting this stuff on, and the markings are really important. When the back is facing down, this snap will face up. So when you've settled on where this gets placed, you can put some clips on it to hold it there. You can also get some extra vinyl here, or cork, or whatever you like, and put it underneath your clips so that they don't get little pokey holes in them, because it'll sit like this for a while until we have to sew it. Now on here, these ones at the top are for the D-ring tabs. We'll place those on. We just want to make sure that they are on so that we can still fit our sewing machine foot in there. So again, I get a piece of cork or vinyl or something and stick it on the other side. You can use fabric glue or something if you want to too. You don't have to use double-sided tape. You can glue them down and they'll stay really well for our sewing later. This is our back. Top is going to have the D-rings. Bottom's going to have the flap that we fold around later when we're finished. And this we're going to put aside. We're not going to sew it. And before I forget, if you only have a wrist strap, you'll only have one of these. And if you have one of these, you want it, since this is the back, it's going to be standing up like this with your zipper on top. So you want it where your zipper is. So you want it here. So this will be the one you want to put on. You won't put on that one. Now, when it comes to the appliques and the reverse appliques, these are not the proper pattern pieces. I am not going to put an applique on this one I'm making, but just to show you how. That's not a nice color together, is it? The placement is in the pattern, where to put it, and all those marks to be transferred on are there too. I don't have them on yet. And so we place it where we're supposed to. You can use glue. You can stitch it on. You can use double-sided tape before you stitch it on. I wouldn't worry about doing the little centers here because, you know, they're fine. It's more the outside here if you want to sew around, or else you can just put on some really secure glue to stick the applique onto our front outer layer. Now, if you're not doing that, this is the wrong piece again. I don't have one cut out. Pretend this is our front outer layer and it has a hole in the middle of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put something behind it. And again, of course, we got to cut this as small as we can without having it too small that it's useless. And we will put double-sided tape or fabric glue around here, and then we can sew around the edges, and that's how you get your reverse applique onto this piece. This will have the hole cut into it, and you behind it you put the backing like that. Now, I've done this in other videos too, and there's really good instructions in the pattern if you want to do this. So let's move on to our front. We have to put our snap on our front. So we've got our back done, our back outer layer, with all the markings, especially for the magnetic snap closure and the D-ring tabs. On the front, we don't have any markings for those things, but we do have the important marking for the snap, and I still say top and bottom, and I still put the guidelines in and the centers. So you'll have to excuse me because I keep losing my voice. I'm fighting a cold for a week now. I have poked these holes in here, and I can't find them now. Oh, there it is. This is where the snap goes. Next, I put on this. I'm not going to trim this one down because it's not going to get in the way of any sewing. And then I can put this on my little washer. I'm going to press this down. And I'm going to bang it with a hammer too because I'm not strong enough to push these. So I'm going to go find my hanger and bang it. Because this one doesn't have an applique on it, I'm going to leave it plain. There's not much else we have to do with this. So I'm just going to bang this, stick some tape on it, and then we can move to our inner layers. Okay, these are going to be my inner pieces. And they're going to have card slots in them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 12. I'm going to take this opportunity to sew on my label here. If you hand cut this, look, even with the machine cut, I cut these by machine, and my machine did a little bubble here. It's just slightly off. But if you did cut with the machine, you should be okay. If you cut by hand, there are instructions, a couple ways to do it in the pattern. And there's also a suggestion to put fray check on this side, just to kind of glue the ends so they don't rip open anymore. But having a square corner here on both ends should be okay. But if you have just one line, a slit, it might tear. So a little bit of fray check here or fabric glue, or else if you want to use a hole punch and stick a hole in the ends of these, that will help with the, when people are sticking things in and out so that the ends don't rip. Okay, so I'm going to put my label on, and then we shall get our card slots going. Okay, these inner layers are ready for card slots now. I put double-sided tape along each of the slots and also along the top. This is my card slot lining, and pay attention because there is a bottom and a top to it. Mine doesn't fray. Some people drag a lighter, melt the edges, right? Some people hem this up so that it looks good. I'm not worried about this one because it's in pretty good shape. I've got my 11 lines drawn on, and make sure you measure your line if you're going to hem after you've hemmed, because you're losing some space here. So measure from the edge up. And you will have some extra space up here where you can hem too, but you might want to wait until you're finished because there's extra space at the top here. So first line's measured from the bottom, and that's going to be right sides together. Second line is measured from here, and that's wrong sides together. The next line is measured from your fold again, and you just keep going back and forth like that until you get through all 11 folds, okay? And if you're at the iron, you can measure and press them. If you're not at the iron, and because this doesn't press very well, I might melt something. Instead, I'm going to go to my machine on this fold and do a very slight zigzag along the bottom. You could sew a very thin stitch too if you'd like. And then I'm going to fold the other one the other way and do the same thing. A very thin line of sewing across the bottom. And I'm just going to do that with all 11 lines to hold those folds in place. There now. This is the bottom. As I'm going along and I'm sewing or pressing, I can see which way the zigzag's supposed to go, so it helps me understand which way is right side together, wrong side together. And after it's all done, check to see it lines up with the slots here. Okay, this is the extra we're going to cut off. So I'm just going to leave this for now and work on the other one. And then after I get the other one done, I'm going to start attaching this onto here. And that gets stuck on the double-sided tape. And then after it's on the double-sided tape, we sew along this spot here right under the slot. But we'll get to that later. Right now I'm going to do the other folded piece. Okay, I just had a wood chipper truck show up at the neighbor's house, so we'll see how much noise that makes. Let's pull off our double-sided tape. Let's line this up here, right along the edge, right there. And I like to sew from this side and sew just under the card slot and straight under there. And then that will hold this on. Then after you do that one, right, it's finished, it's sewed on, then you can do the same with the next one. Take off the tape, squish it on, sew it through, and sometimes it helps. I don't have any painter's tape. I like painter's tape, but I ran out. But sometimes it helps to stick a strip of tape along here so that you know you're not going past that line no matter what, because there'll be like a fluorescent green piece of tape here and you don't want to sew onto the tape. So I usually stick a row of tape this side, and that way I'm staying, when I'm sewing, right underneath the slot. So let's sew the first one on, and then we'll come back and do the second one. And I forgot to mention, leave your threads long so that you can pull them through to the wrong side and tie them off. Okay, I've sewed this on. I did find some tape, although I don't know if I want to keep it on there for too long because it might be too sticky. I sewed across, stayed within the tape lines. Now I can pull the double-sided tape off the next one and place, where's my second one, right here. Place it along the edge. And you can see it forms a little pocket there. And I can sew along here just the same. I always sew from this side so I can see what it looks like. Excuse me. Still losing my voice. And there's a thread hanging out, so I'll cut that off too. So I'm just going to sew down here. Okay, now we're on to our third one. And you can see when you stick your hand in here now that it's not going anywhere. So now let's do our third one. We take our tape off. There's no backing now. And let's fold this one up. And if you flip it over, we're going to sew between here. Okay, we've got all our slots sewn. If you see any odd threads, you might want to cut them off. I see a couple there. On the other side, all the slots are sewn, and the one left here has to be pushed up to the top. Now this is the point here where if you want to hem it before you push it up to the top. I'm just going to cut it off there, and I'm going to baste it just a little bit along here so it stays, because later it's going to have a couple of rows of stitches there anyway holding it down. So I just want it to stay there for now, just even a couple of stitches just to hold it. And then we can move on to putting, oh, remember to make 2 of these, and then we can move on to putting our zipper in. This is the front. This is the inner layer for the front. They're going to go together like this eventually, right? So now we can work on putting our zipper in. So I'm going to just baste that a little bit, trim that, and then I'll come back and show you how to put the zipper in. Okay, I've got both done now. Top is still at the top, bottom's still at the bottom. I've got all the card slots in here. Test them out, cut off your loose threads. If you've got any loose threads hanging out, I still see loose threads when I manipulate it around, they pop out, so I'll cut those off. And we'll put this aside for a minute, because what we can work on now is the pocket that goes on the back. Can you hear the wood chipper going at the neighbor's house? I certainly can. So this is the back, and on the back we have a pocket which goes on there. I am going to put a little bit of trim at the top. You can always use, you know, if you don't want to do the trim, you can use some edge paint or even some glue of some sort. But I'm going to stick this on first, and then let's just match up the centers here. And then I can stick my pocket back on there. Now, I have to find my double-sided tape. This is how it goes on, though. I've done a nice little center line there so I can line it up. I know it overhangs a bit on the edges, but I'll explain that to you in a minute. Let's just get this on to start with. And put this on there. Okay, first I'm going to sew it down from this edge to this edge. I don't have to go to this because this will be cut off eventually. So let's just sew down here. Now let's fold it over and clip it. And we can sew it down. And again, we're not doing from the edge of the trim to the other edge of the trim. We're just doing from the edge of the pocket over, because I want to cut these off afterwards. But it helps me to feed through my machine if I have these a little bit longer. Now I've got this sewn on. I can cut this off. Remember, we're not cutting our stitching. And remember, we are not cutting straight. We're cutting on the same angle that the pocket is, because it's slightly angled. Now, if you want, you can sew it onto the bottom of this right now. But I wouldn't sew it on anywhere else yet, because we have a zipper to put in, and you're going to end up with way too many stitching lines. I try and make minimum stitching lines with this one, because it just kind of adds to the busyness of it. But this is where this will go. So when we sew this onto the bottom, it'll hold those magnetic snap tab down so that we don't have to have the clips in anymore. Okay, this pocket is here now. It's attached. That's all we're going to do with it until we put our zippers in, because when we sew this in, we want to have a bit of a gape here. So this is slightly bigger than the back so that you can put things into it. This is the only line of stitching we're going to do right now. I put a little bit of glue on the back side here just to hold those knots, because they're important knots. But otherwise, I'm going to put this aside for now. Now, if you haven't got your guidelines marked on your zipper pocket linings or your front layer or your inner layer, make sure you get them on there. I had trouble getting the line on this black because it's it's so dark. And mark your centers on your zipper too. And if this zipper pocket lining is fraying too much for you, I'm pretty much okay with it. You can melt the edges of it, or you can put there's enough room here to put a 1/4 inch seam allowance in here. So maybe I'll just zigzag a little seam allowance in here, and then we can continue. Okay, I did my little hemming for the top of these so that it doesn't fray right by where the zipper is, but remember you still need those guidelines on there, so don't forget those. Now let's put on some zipper tape here. See how good this works, hey? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So everything's ready now. We've got zipper pocket linings with our hems and our guidelines, and we've got our zippers on and our centers marked. Now we've got our 4 pieces here. And how are we going to put these together? Here's the front, and here is the front inner layer. We'll keep those together. Here's the back, and here's the back inner layer. We'll keep those pieces together. So what we have here is wrong sides together and wrong sides together. And it's basically going to be 2 pouches with zipper on this side. So I'm going to get some clips, and that's the front. And the zipper is going to be placed on this side. Okay, because think of it standing up like that. You want the zippers on top. Here's your other one. You got your inner and your outer piece together. I'm going to move these up so I can see here. And we put these together. And we're going to put them together with the zipper on this side again. So let's put some clips in here, and we're not going to take these clips out until we're ready to work with it, so we don't lose our spot, because this is going to stand up like this. It's a pouch that stands like this. There's the back, and there's the front inside. Then later we're going to stick them all together, so now you can see all the zippers are on this side. So what we're dealing with is the right-hand side is going to have the zippers. So I'm going to put this one aside for now, and we're going to work with this one. Okay, so one pouch at a time. We're not going to do this one yet, but I still don't want to lose my spot because I want the zipper on this side. And I want the zipper on this side. And this is the zipper I'm going to put on. I am not going to, where's my marker? We are not going to sew past this point. So when I put my zipper on, I want my pull on top because of gravity. You don't want everything falling out of the bottom. And this way, everything will hang on the bottom, but the pull will be up here. So that means I'm going to put this tape on here with the pull on top. Let's match up our centers a bit here. Is that nice and even? Yes, it is. That looks good. Don't need that anymore. I am not sewing from here to here. I am going to open this a bit. That's a clunky pull. Very heavy, good quality. And I'm going to turn this down so that I sew only in between the marks, guidelines. And that little bit of zipper double-sided tape there will help hold it down. And I'm going to get some masking tape to hold it down too. So we want our zippers bent. We do not want to sew past this line or past this line. I'm going to get a dot of tape here. So I can keep it in there. And we can check it. This is the bottom with the snap, and this is the top with the pull. Okay, if you like, you can sew zipper stops or use purchase zipper stops to secure this. Just sew a little zigzag back and forth on here. Okay, we've got our zipper stops sewn on here. I'm going to flip this over now and put on the next layer, which is our zipper pocket lining. Now, where's our marks? Right there. And the centers, yep, the center's right there too. So I'm going to put this on top of here and sew down all the layers all at once. Let me get some double-sided tape to help hold it down. We can sew. Obviously, we're not sewing on top of our zipper teeth, but we're going to sew from inside the zipper teeth to inside the zipper teeth. And I'm going to do it from this side because I want to make sure it looks pretty. And then after I sew, I'm going to check to see if I did catch, because you can see the zipper here. I want to make sure I actually catch the whole zipper when I'm sewing. So it's going to be close to the edge. I've got enough room to do it right about there. I can see the zipper from here. So I'm just going to sew from here to here, and then it'll be on this side perfectly. Okay, there's my zipper stop. I've sewed my zipper on. I did not sew past the guidelines. And that's looking good. Now let's stick on the other section. Remember, we've got the clip in. This is the side that the zipper is supposed to be going on. Also make sure that you aren't crooked this way. Get a ruler and line up across here to make sure that it's lined up precisely. And these are the tops, these are the bottoms. So all I have to do is stick this on here. Again, I'm going to open my zipper a little bit so it stays out of the way. I'm going to line up my centers and my guidelines. And I've got my center matched up. If that looks good on this side, yep, then we can put our pocket lining on top of it. Just like that, except I'm going to get some double-sided tape again and hold it down. So I'm just going to sew between the guidelines and sew the zipper on. Okay, our zipper's totally sewn on, so that's good. I clipped these because I want to remember something, but let's show you this first. This is how it's going to look on the outside, and then when you open it up, there's the inside. So our zippers are placed right too. Now we have to close these up, and I clipped these because I put the corners under. It goes together nicer. It looks nicer on the inside if the corners are under. So I just want to remind myself to, when I'm putting these together, make sure these corners are bent. Like that. And then we can go around and clip the rest of it too. Where are my small clips? These ones are huge. So let's dog-ear these corners just a little bit so so that our end result inside our pocket looks nicer. So I'm going to sew around now. Sew these corners down and go around. Close the bottom and come back up here and sew that down too. And that's it. This is pretty much what it's going to look like. We have to put some stabilizer in this if you want to, and we have to sew this pouch up. And then we can do the next one exactly the same, except it has a back pocket. So I'll show you how to put the back pocket on. But for now, let's find our stabilizer. And here I've cut a couple of pieces of stabilizer and managed to get ink all over myself. So I prefer to put the stabilizer on the outside piece. I just feel like there's a bit more freedom on the inside here if there's no stabilizer behind it. And so I will put this on the outside. This size is kind of arbitrary because it depends on your seam allowances and the thickness of your material and how far you sewed your zipper down. But let's start with the mathematical size that I gave you in the pattern. That should give me enough room to sew around. So you can cut it a bit smaller if you wish. Now, what else was I going to say about this? Oh yes, if you have the stabilizer here and it feels kind of hard, you can also put a layer of foam in here, and then that'll make it so that when you're holding your wallet, it feels soft and cushy on the outside. It might be nicer feeling in your hands. So I'm just going to get a piece of foam too, and just to try the feeling of it out and see if maybe I want to put the foam in there too. Okay, I did find some foam, and I'm cut it just a bit smaller than my stabilizer. You can use glue if you like to glue it on. I'm going to see how this tape holds. I'm seriously running out of tape. I just center it on there. And then when I put it in here, it does change the feel of it just a little bit, so it feels kind of nice in your hand. So I am going to leave it like this. Slide this in here, and I'm going to clip it around so that it stays, doesn't fall out. And when we sew, we're going to sew just this little piece across the bottom up to the top, and then stop. And then we're going to sew this little piece. Okay, now you can see I sewed around. So I've sewed the bottom and the long side. You can sew here if your machine can handle it. I would rather myself glue it and not mess up my pretty stitches, because I do like how my stitches are turning out, so I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to use some glue, and I'm going to squish it in here and keep that down so it looks nicer and nothing falls in, falls out, gets dusty. So I'm going to glue down these two sides. I'm going to put a spot of glue on my knots because I really want them to stay. This up here we're not worried about because it's going to be sewed together, the tops with the other piece. And this is what your other piece is going to look like, right? It's got the clips on top because that's where your zipper is going to go. So if you flip this around 500 times, we still have our clips on the top to remind us that this is where the zipper goes for the back layer. So this is standing like this, and this is standing like this, and the tops are sewed together. And then when it opens, you have it opening like that. And when we're doing this section, we're putting the zipper in the middle there. And that's how it's going to work out so that the zipper ends up being on top. If you have a back pocket, when we're doing the back pocket, make sure it's lined up flush with this, because that's how, when we sew the zipper down, that's how we're going to sew this pocket down on this side too. And on this side, you see how it's overhanging? When we finish this wallet, this will be sewn down here flush too. So you'll have a bit of a gap so you can put something inside, like a phone. A phone will easily fit in here. Okay, I've set up my zipper for one side here. And I've got double-sided tape on the zipper. and I put it down within my guidelines on the pattern, and I put my zipper pocket lining on top of it. So now I'm going to go sew between the two guidelines, and then I can stick on the other side. Okay, this side is done. I've checked to see I've caught my zipper underneath. Now we can stick on this side, and we do the same thing again, except we have to make sure, and you can always use a spot of double-sided tape to do this too, just in case. This is where our zipper is going to be sewn again. So we can put this on here. This time I want you to make sure that it is level this way, okay? Even if you have to drag it up against the side of your cutting board, I'm thinking about food, cutting mat. There, so that looks pretty good. I don't think I'll have any problem with that. The bottoms are lined up. So now we can sew this on. Sorry about the clanking. I don't have any, oh, there's my measurements. I thought I lost my measurements. I lost them on the other side. They wore off, but they stayed on this beige really nicely. So I didn't have too much problem with that. So keep your zipper within your guidelines. I have a wood chipper truck again that shows up every now and then outside. So hopefully he's not interfering with me and you being able to hear me. There, so that should do it. First I'll put my lining on, then I'll sew my zipper. So there you go. That way I only have one row of stitching to worry about. So now I will sew my zipper on, and I will put a little zipper stop down here. So there we go. I've sewed it in, I've glued it, I've done a zipper stop. It's gonna look great. Now let's close up our little pocket in here. I do like to bend these corners down when I'm sewing so that it does a bit nicer of a finish to it. So I will clip these corners down when I sew. And it also makes it easier for me to get to the top of the pocket too. So let's just clip these together, or pin these together or something. And we can sew our pocket up. Okay, I've got the pocket sewn shut. If you couldn't get up to the top with your machine, you can always stick a couple of stitches in by hand to make sure it stays closed. Now let's get out our stabilizer. And remember, we want the cushy side to be facing the outside so it feels a little bit better when you're holding it. So that's going to go right here. And I've got the pocket and the lining behind it. Now let's line this up. Finally, we can get rid of these clips here. Now remember, when we're sewing this, we want this to be lined up with the back. So if you need a little bit of double-sided tape on here, then put that on there to make sure it stays. So that's going to be the back. This is going to be the inside. And then we've got our zipper pocket here. Now when we're sewing around, we can sew here if we can. If not, use some really good glue on it. Down across through here and up there. We don't have to sew the tops right now. I try and do as little top stitching as I can, so we'll leave the top stitching up here when we sew everything together. And then after, we can sew this little spot here if you can. If not, let's glue it really well. Okay, we've got this sewn on now. I just went down here and across here. I did a little bit here and then I glued the rest of it where I couldn't reach. And this one up here I had trouble getting to with my machine, so I just glued it. So now we're going to put the two pieces together, just like this. Now this is 4 layers of cork, and it is where the D-ring tabs are, another 2 extra layers. So that adds up to 6 layers of cork. And we shall see if my machine feels like sewing through it today. I'll just adjust the clips here. You can do a couple of rows. You've got 1/2 inch of space there to do it in, and just sew here, and then we'll be finished. Oh, yes, and this is taped down because when I was sticking it through my machine, I kept getting the card slots stuck in the corners of the machine, and I was wondering why my top stitching was going crooked. I took out a lot of top stitching and redid that row because it was so goofy looking. And also the magnet was sticking. So I took the magnet and covered it up too. But this is the end result as soon as we get those two pieces sewn together. Okay, we're done. My machine liked doing this better than it liked doing other parts of this. Now, I'm not doing the lengths that are in the pattern because I had this funny piece of cork that was, you know, an odd shape, and I don't like wasting, so I'm going to get rid of it all. So 2 of these things I will have to put together, like it says in the pattern. I'll sew across here and then open it up, glue it down. The instructions are in the pattern, but I'll do one up here and show you how I did it. And so 2 of these sections I have to stick together. These 2 sections I'm going to keep apart because I'm going to do what I call a hardware heavy strap. It has a couple of extra pieces besides the sliders and the swivel hooks. It has these rectangle pieces extra. And then after I get the straps prepared, I'm going to hook it all together with Chicago screws. So to start with, I'm going to put these things together. I don't know if you've seen this before, but it's pretty easy to do. You just make it at right angles. And I'm going to draw a line from one corner to the other and sew on that line. So I'm going to use chalk and hope that it works okay. I want to go from one corner that's underneath to the other corner that's on top. So I will draw a line there. Let's hook it back together and see how it looks. Yep, that's good. So I'm going to sew across here, tie knots, and then fold it up. Trim off the ends just a teeny weeny bit so it's not too thick, and they will end up like this together, and I'll glue it down. I have joined these 2 pieces together to make a longer piece. This is not the correct size still, but it'll work. And so this I have to sew together like we usually do with cork straps. If you want, if you're worried about stretching, sometimes with vinyl, you can put a strip of ribbon in here, twill tape, some interfacing, maybe a strip of interfacing, just something in the center. So I'm going to sew these 2 pieces together, and that'll take care of our middle section. While I was waiting for my glue to dry, I did these 2 sections. I sewed them together. And make sure when you put the hook on the ends that you're doing the same on this side with the rectangle ring, because you don't want it looking like this, right? Where one's down and one's up. So make sure both are facing the same way. And that takes care of this strap. I'm going to put some Chicago screws in these holes here that I'm going to make, and then that'll finish this section. Right now I'm going to sew this together, and then I'll put the slider on and I'll show you how to do the rest of it. Okay, I've got my long strap done up now. Let's put our slider in. If you have a slider that has a bump in it, sometimes they're perfectly flat and sometimes they're, see, this one curves. So make sure the curve is facing the right way too. This is the right side. We want this to curve over the slider. Now that's a bit too long, so I'm just going to move this back a bit. I don't know, 1 inch, 1.5 inch. If you're sewing, you want more space, but if you're just putting in a Chicago screw or a rivet, 1 inch might be enough. I'm just going to hook that there. Now, we have our slider, and we have to come through one of our rectangle rings. And again, we have to make sure we're coming through the right way, so I'm going to try it twice and just see how it looks, just in case. And yep. Then let's stick it through and see what happens. Because if I stick it through here now, might look nice there, but look at what I did. So I have to flip this over. I've got it facing the wrong way. That's why I never, ever, ever put in my rivets or anything, any sewing, until I'm sure. So let's try it again, turned around the other way and see what happens. Okay, so now we've got the wrong side down, the wrong side down through the rectangle ring, the wrong side down through the slider, and this wrong side will be down through here. Not this way, but this way. This one I like to make the same as that one. I think I used about 1 inch. Yep. And before we sew it or do anything with it, let's make sure everything is on the right side, the wrong side, the other side, whatever you'd like to call it. I just put all these clips in to hold it. Oop. Okay, so let's check. This is facing down. This one's facing down. This one's facing down. Down, down, and down. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rivets to poke in. And then we'll be finished. So how did it go? Do you have any questions? You can leave them here, or you can leave them in the Lányos Handmade Pattern Party Facebook group. I'll leave the link below in the comments for the group so you can come join us. And be sure and show off what you've made, because I love to see it. And I guess that's all until I see you next time. Thank you for watching. I hope you had fun.